pcSHOWmeAI, pcSHOWmeAI, pcSHOWmeAI.
Hey Trailblazers, welcome back to pcSHOWmeAI. I'm Jim. Today I'm thrilled to share a thought-provoking and practical conversation I had with my friend Eric about the evolving world of AI tools and workflows. We explored pipelines, ComfyUI, Stable Diffusion models, and more, as well as how the creative process intersects with advanced AI technology to make storytelling, music, and visual projects more innovative and accessible. Whether you're a tech enthusiast, a creator, or someone curious about AI and how it's shaping the way we work and create, there's something here for you. Let's dive into the engaging discussion and see how those tools are unlocking new possibilities.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, ComfyUI in particular, I'm very interested in.
There's so much nuance to it. I mean, between not just the prompt, but even the most minute settings, even just the seeds, just like one away, right? Just it's incredible, and it's just the difference that it can make in the picture and the quality and even what it's about. I was doing some tests with 3 blind mice and farmer's wife and stuff in the beginning. It was just totally missing the whole context, like it didn't even know what mice were, right? And then
Nice.
it's like when I train the larger models, I mean, have the training that they can handle a nursery rhyme prompt or whatever, right? And then, but yet the nuance, if you say like a country diner and then a country dinner, it'll actually draw people having like a meal for dinner, or people it'll draw in a diner, right? And so it's like even the most minute things it catches if it's within its training parameters. Then I switched to the SDXL model, and that recognized both of them right away. I mean, that got it. Tried some way out their prompts that were,
Nice.
but anyway, let me show you. I don't know if you saw the most recent video I did.
You're releasing them so frequently, I may not have.
Like the music video, it was based on the music video. It inspired the story. I decided to branch out into storytelling also, and then pair them up and link them together.
That makes sense. Have some sort of storyline that's just underpinning, and then interject songs throughout. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool.
Yeah, and so let me share this with you because this is cool. I used
and you're starting, and just to clarify, you're starting to use ComfyUI as part of that process to define different work streams based on what sorts of positive and negative experiences you have in a particular step along the way. You adjust for that in this workflow.
Right.
Nice.
And I mean, ComfyUI has got so much versatility, and I've also recently come along with some upscalers that I haven't really dealt with bringing into my workflow yet, but that can supposedly upscale it to any resolution. You know, and I don't know about the time or anything else considered, but I mean, that's definitely promising. With this video, I used mostly ComfyUI. With the music video, that was all AI art generated as well, but for that I used everything across the gamut, from ComfyUI to Sora to Luma to Giju, a lot of different stuff. But with the video, I used mainly ComfyUI. I also used Ideogram, the section break. And yeah, this was a founding father thing. So you do like a generate quick. It's just a real life photo of George Washington and the founding fathers. It's not bad for, I mean, I got it set down to.
Well, it looks like it's like 3 George Washingtons hanging out.
Yeah.
Percent sitting off to the side, maybe.
Yeah, well, sometimes you just gotta play with the settings a bit to get it a little bit better. Let me show you this, because then you'll see kind of what it can and can't do. And I'm not gonna say intentionally, but I used most of the artwork that I thought was good enough, even though it wasn't perfect in this. So some of it is better than others. Some of it is just like, okay, well, that can be improved. Right now, I mean, I was a new concept. I was launching, with the channel. I was putting it out there, and it seemed like the best way to do because, I mean, I can definitely upscale the effort quickly. I mean, exponentially. Like next time, it'll be that much better, right? The song was called New Time, and the story is called New Time, a story of awakening, and it's about dance, healing, and transformation. Now, in this, for the most part, all of the slides for within the chapters, I use ComfyUI, whether it was like Stable Diffusion XL or other models within ComfyUI to generate, or different settings thereof. And then for the chapter markers, I made those on ideogram because I wanted those to be more concise, and I didn't download any text or spelling modules into ComfyUI yet, so I didn't want to have it trying to do a whole bunch of text because, I mean, I didn't give it that capability yet. All right, so anyways, this is it, and then this is like some of the artwork that we got. New Year, welcome to 2025, and welcome back to pcSHOWme. This channel is more than just music. It's where creativity, inspiration, and storytelling come together to encourage, uplift, and build a supportive community. Today, I'm excited to share something new with you. It's a short story inspired by my recent song, New Time. It's a journey of renewal and hope, and I think you're really going to connect with it. So let's dive in. New Time. A story of awakening. Section 1. The echoes of the years gone by. Maya stood at the edge of the dance studio's rooftop, watching the sun set over the city skyline. 5 years of running this place, of teaching others to find their rhythm, and somehow she'd lost her own. The rejection letter from the National Dance Company still burned in her pocket, a reminder of dreams deferred. New section. Every step, a story at. Below, the evening dance class was filling out. Among them was Marcus, a former corporate lawyer who traded his briefcase for ballet shoes and his wife's passing. She'd watched him transform from a man who could barely touch his toes to someone who found healing in movement. New section. This is the moment. A spark. A start. The idea hit her like a thunderbolt. The annual City Arts Festival was approaching, but instead of submitting another safe, traditional piece, she could create something entirely new. A performance that blended classical ballet with street dance, featuring her students, real people with real stories. New section. Eyes wide open, the veil removed. I ran downstairs and caught Marcus before he left. What if we did something different? She asked, her eyes bright with possibility. What if we showed the world that dance isn't just about perfect technique, but about transformation? New section. Every victory, every fall. The next weeks were a blur of rehearsals. A teenage breakdancer paired with a retired teacher, a recovering addict dancing alongside a pediatric nurse. Each person's story woven into a tapestry of movement and music. There were injuries, arguments, moments of doubt, but something magical was happening. New section. Made the climb worth it all. The night of the performance arrived. As Maya watched from the wings, her heart swelled. On stage, performing a duet with empty space, his movements telling the story of loss and of rebirth. The audience was silent, transfixed. In that moment, she'd realized she'd been chasing the wrong dream all along. New section. A rising dawn, our guiding light. The performance ended with thunderous applause. Representatives from dance companies across the city approached her afterwards, not with rejection letters, but with opportunities to bring her vision to their stages. But more importantly, she looked at her dancers, her community, their faces glowing with pride and joy. New section. New time, the pages turn, the story unfolds. AI's studio became known as a place where dance and healing were intertwined, where every student's story mattered. The National Dance Company's letter remained in her desk drawer, no longer a symbol of failure, but a reminder of the moment she chose to write her own story instead. As she stood on the rooftop a year later, watching a new sunset, she understood that sometimes the most beautiful dances are the ones we create when we think we've lost our way. Section. New time. A brand new world, ours to hold. The end. Or is it just the beginning?
Well, good stuff. Yeah, like you said, that being that being a locally produced item and etc. It's yeah, it's a lot of promise. I like it. I like it a lot.
Well, and it's a question of resources, which is also why I started this, because, like you said, I make so many videos, and it's like you're making them all the time, right? And I mean, if I would use AI to generate all this video and all these pictures and stuff, even though I have subscriptions to all these, I would either have to keep renewing them or whatever, or like Sora, you can only get what you get and that's it. And so when I run it locally, I have unlimited resources, so I can just sit here and do it, right? And
Yeah,
so
and
that's
improve the process and add additional functionality, try different things. It's more flexible, in a word, flexible. So yeah.
and I was trying different video generators, and I was also trying different settings with them. But like this one, the prompt that I used here was 3 blind mice chasing a farmer's wife. Basically, it took 3 blind people, 2 ladies and a man, and the ones on the outside have dogs that are leading them.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and
3
the
people
next,
with sunglasses.
yeah,
But
right. And this one I did pretty much the same prompt, but a different seed. This one it has the person with little mouse ears with the and this one has like a metal detector. This guy, and then it has like dogs that kind of look like big mice, I guess, or hamsters or something.
Wow, stuff like that is the context, but yeah, you need confirmation. I think part of the trick is that you're talking about a large language model, and so the language pluralization of mouse to mice you might say mouses, for example, and it might get it, even though that's not right. So I think that comes into the training and the ability. If you have a precise command of the language, then it shouldn't be taken for granted, or in other words, or actually better than that, it shouldn't be torn down. That should be respected. So if you can communicate in language communicates very precisely, it shouldn't be dumbed down into the levels that a common off-the-shelf solution has. And that's another benefit to being able to take a tool like you're doing locally and modify it to add additional prompts in between. For example, you can do an interpretation. It says, hey, I'm sending this prompt to this model, and that response I want to forward to another model, but if it's modified the words in the context in certain ways, I want to modify it back before sending it to the next model to continue on. So that's the difference between getting 4 sexy girls at a Halloween party and getting 4 mice crawling around on the floor being chased by a cat, right? So you can build that in programmatically, but that's where we're headed really. The next phase of AI implementation is, do you put it on the model or do you put it on the implementation of the model? And which nuances of each are going to be done and highlighted? For example, you might have a large language model trainer who just says, I've kind of trained it up a bit in that area, and you're going to polish it up anyway, so I'm not going to worry about it. Versus, I've trained this model up so precisely on every nuance, including misspellings, intentional things, colloquialisms that the person thinks in their head sounds correct, but is actually grammatically wrong. But the intention is interpreted correctly because the model is that intent. It's going to be interesting to see the progression, but it's going to be a bounce back and forth between the implementation of the model and the programming. So that's why I'm really excited to see things like we've got on the screen here with your flows it's going to be a whole process no matter how you slice it. And this is
Right.
why you can't lose a job to AI. You can only add jobs. You can't like,
Right.
hey, AI has exposed all this additional work that we can do with the assistance of AI, but now we've, opened the floodgates versus fire everybody and just put it on automatic.
Right. So one thing you're gonna love about ComfyUI is it can do a lot of what you said. I mean, you can actually make workflows that, like, at different stages in the workflows, they'll send it to, like, send different samplers or advanced samplers, and it can chain them up, and it can, like, scale this one up from steps 0 to 12, and then this one will scale up from steps 12 to 50, and this one will scale up from 50 to 80 or whatever, and then it'll come down, and this got another signal going down here, just like an effects chain or whatever, right? And you can do different things with the video, and then you can have it combine that, and you can have it generate a different output. And so there's so much versatility in this interface. I mean, I've explored it a little bit that way, but I mean, I've mostly been focused on just getting stuff out with it, right?
Oh
Because
yeah,
that's
it's
what I-
phases. We're
Yeah.
yeah. That's this next step. Yeah, it's cool stuff. And this is the kind of thing where the generative AI helps along the way. So the way that I work with just in general with an AI assistant is in a given chat string, I'll have a subject. And the subject might be ComfyUI. And I'll say, hey, what are some best practices for ComfyUI? Here are the best practices. Okay, that's great. And then you just have the conversation. And you just have that in Chat GPT as your ComfyUI back and forth. And as you keep moving and you come across some different ideas, or maybe you want to get some ideas of what am I missing here, or what does this look like? Let's add some clarifications for gateway analysis from one pipeline throughput to another. Just okay, let's put that on the back burner for now. We'll get back to that. 3 or 4 weeks later, hey, about that gateway analytics. Oh yeah, let's get on that. Boom, just like that.
Right.
So yeah, it's the tools are just which is great.
Speaking of clarification, the SDXL model did get the 3 mice correct on the first try. Because
There you go.
it's
There
more
you
of a nuanced model for that, right? It's made to handle a greater, whereas the other model that I set it on was specialized in kind of like 80s rap stuff, right? And so it really wasn't a fair question. Yeah, but I wanted to test it, right? Because I mean, unless you test those things, even with the models that aren't designed for that, you don't know. Because a lot of times when you test something that's not made for that, you might get different results that are unexpected but way cool, right?
Well, yeah, and actually, playing with the reality that we saw a second ago, you could take that output from the one and input it into this. Say, based on that image, make this image, right? And then we'll say it cartoonifies it. These classic filters, for example, but it's fresh new generation, and yeah, it's fun.
Speaking of cartoonifies it and such, Civic AI is where we can go to get a lot of these models and stuff, right? I mean, both for Comfy and all the other stuff. And so when you go here, and you gotta be careful when you go through this, because I mean a lot of that stuff is not safe for work. But I mean, and you can filter it out too. But I mean, it's not bad. It's not like terrible, but it's just like, something you wouldn't want to be viewing at work, probably. Anyway, but it's got the models here. It's also got images, and you can look through that. You can get prompts, you can get images, you can get workflows, you can get models. And if you look like in the models, like if you want to do like ComfyUI, and so we'll search for that. And it's got like models that are especially designed for like anime or animation or, different types of things, right? I mean, pretty much anything you want.
Okay, so can we take a step back here, because all I'm seeing on the screen is just a bunch of AI images. So I don't interpret this as in my head, when you say, look at this, this is a
Okay.
ComfyUI, I'm just seeing images. Are you telling me this was generated from ComfyAI?
Yeah, through these are
Okay.
specific models that for like this one was in here. Let's see. It tells what image resources used. So this was Ken Kang's ArtStyle Laurel Larcoon engine. So you can actually go here and it'll tell you how to implement that. If you want, you can download that language model to your PC and you can run it in Comfy. And it'll also give you, most of them give you like the prompts that were used to generate that image so you can test it, right? With stuff that's close or whatever. So if you go like VUI, yeah. And so all these ones, see, there's some like workflows for it where they got workflows you can do or else.
Okay, so basically, if you see something in the style or along the style that you like, this is a way to
Right.
download that configuration for your local ComfyUI for your own use.
Right. Here you can down like this one, this lady.
That's
It's
the
a
Taylor Swift generator. Yeah.
ComfyUI ComfyUI face swap, right? So you can actually do a like thing where you can have videos and you can do a
Oh,
face swap
gotcha.
into them.
Okay, well that explains that. I gotcha. Yeah.
And it'll
I mean,
like,
yeah.
you know, have things. But
I have absolutely no use for that.
Yeah.
I promise
Well,
you, I will
yeah.
never need that service. So that's something I'm seeing as a recurring theme with this. Like it's all well and good and it's all fun and games, but that's just it. This is a lot of fun and games. Again, I'm not really seeing anybody losing jobs or winning jobs on this. I think the use cases for pipeline functionality is where my interest in this is. So it's the sort of, yeah, this is a good set of lines to get to a particular end goal. It is the sort of thing that I think professionals can use to make better services, to have as assistance for people, and to be able to allow the drag and drop experience from a user to say, I find this as a user of interest in my pipeline. So how can I drag over into this pipe my OneDrive, my Google Drive, things like this, and how can I generate my next year's plan based on my past 10 years of documents that I have linked into this thing? That sort of grandiose sort of use case and the points within there. But it's also the idea that at work, because you mentioned like some of the stuff isn't worth it might be inappropriate for work, basically. Well, what if you work at that company? If you work at the company that makes that product, then you're going to be in there all the time. So it in a context, not my personal context, but in some context, all of this is work, because somebody is making some money or wants to make some money off of these sorts of things. Or if not make money, provide a service. And when you're providing a service, that's where the business comes into play. So I really love the idea of having this amount of power pliable to anything that the user locally sees important. So in your case, you're using it for video generation, you're using it for story generation, for music generation, for general question and answer concepts and conversations, for interpersonal investigation and consideration and communication. You have a lot of different use cases in your head and that you're applying for it, and that's part of why I enjoy talking about this stuff, and seeing this kind of a tool available in that kind of a use case. Even the color coding that we have on the screen here is the sort of thing where it can trigger certain use cases or dismiss them to simplify in different contexts. So for example, if you're not creating a video, you might drop 2 or 3 of the blocks in this whole thing and leave the others. Or if you need to add a song or a music element, then you might pull the music elements into here, which hadn't been there before. So the flexibility of that with ComfyUI is where I'm just absolutely blown away with how much that you can do with it, and seeing what you've done with it, and how much is available online just in general. You know, I was ripping on, in so many words, I was ripping on the use cases a minute ago, but you know, it's in context of what are you doing at home with this downloaded for free. Like people are doing this without paying premiums kind of stuff, and that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, even like the image and video generation and stuff. I mean, that's actually a lot more applicable at work than one might think. I mean, how many times you have to make info charts or other stuff just to explain concepts or to sell your
I'll get you
coworkers on an
started on that,
idea,
man.
right?
Yeah, if you want to bring that up, I'll talk about my dislike about how AI basically sucks at making architecture diagrams. I'll just drop that and walk away from it. Yeah.
Right, John?
Talk about where AI is not about to replace anybody's job, man. You give it a full on, like in Azure, we can export a template that basically outlines in key value pairs like this equals that, like the name is this, what it does is that kind of stuff, all the way down, and it tells you what is the thing. And in that context, you'd think that a computer would be able to create a picture that looks like the thing. Nope, 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 nope. I sure as heck haven't seen it yet. I would love, please prove me wrong, world. Oh my gosh, please show me where I can get that and install it in ComfyUI and start making my own architecture diagrams.
That's the thing, like you said, how you phrase it, even everything, just what you ask it determines the what you get back, right?
Yeah, keeping in mind that there are intermediaries, so it's not you asking something directly to GPT-4 or 4.0 or whatever. You are prompting it through an API, a program. The program kicks it to a filter, which kicks it to a filter, which kicks it to a filter. So even when you think you're being very specific, it might be messing with what you're sending it. So you have to adjust based on that. You're saying like, no, I'm very specifically saying this, and if it's just not coming through that way, then you're going to have to adjust, and that's the nature of existence.
Right.
Yeah, but that's also a benefit of doing certain grounding points in your own custom workflows. For me personally, I do like very precise language and being able to be very nitpicky about the words that I use and have the literal meanings be respected and not to be generalized, especially in the context of a prompt response sort of a framework. So I could take that mindset and put it into the very first filter that my API pushes through. It's like, make sure that it's very clear that the AI knows that it needs to be considering these points, blah, blah, blah. It might be work specific. So if I'm saying something like Microsoft Azure Cloud is every time I talk to you, Mr. API 123, it's about Azure Cloud. So if I'm opening up API 123 bot, I could just say, tell me about the day, and it knows it's the only reason I would ask it about the day is because I want to hear about Azure, and it'll tell me about what I've grounded it to be as Azure for the day. So that point, actually, that I mentioned in passing just then, that's exactly what I'm on about with this sort of, I'll say, bespoke chatbots. Whether it's a checkbox that you set or an auto detect is what a lot of people are trying these days, but I think that's a lot of overhead that's unnecessary. Just make them as separate endpoints. Make them as checkboxes if you want to have additional inclusions, but to just do the inference based on the context and the language, I just think that's a lot of compute overhead we just don't need to do. Just have checkboxes, separate inputs. But that's for me to say, right? So I could do that with something like ComfyUI. I could say, when I open this endpoint, when I go to this URL, we'll say, it's always going to be to make a music song. Or I'm going to always go to this URL for making pictures of rainbow tigers. So, it's about design. It's about knowing what the model is expected to do, what your customers want to be able to do with it, and how much customization people are interested in doing. I mean, for me, I don't necessarily want to do a lot of customization outside of just saying context 1, context 2, context 3, etc. And for each of those contexts, maybe have 4 or 5 groundings and 2 or 3 data sources. And whether or not it's the large language model or otherwise, that's something else. But that's all the parts of the flexibility, and that's why this is it's just going to be noise for a long time. There's a lot of static out there. There's just a lot of static in the generative AI space, and it's not going away anytime soon. Fortunately, because there's a lot of good that's going to come out of it as well, solving big problems, ultimately improving, but there's just a lot of noise.
Yeah, and you got to work to it, just like with anything, right? It's just, keep getting better.
Yep. Yep.
Let's do this. We'll go to the XDSL model, but we'll still keep this real basic template that I made, which really doesn't have much of anything in it, except for, the load checkpoint, which is your model, the SDXL, Stable Diffusion XL, and then the positive clip, the negative clip. Negative clip, you really just need to put something that's like opposite of what you want, right? You don't have to put a lot of all that other stuff. You just need something different. Then it's, the sampler, which and it's got your, your controls, the configurations, how closely you want it to adhere to the prompt, or how creative you want it to be and add to it. And it can be counterintuitive, because like with the smaller models, if the training doesn't encompass what you ask and you tell it to adhere to your prompt, it's not going to be able to do that. And so trying to do that, it's going to give you something. Whereas if you give it a higher creativity, it'll actually be able to interpret that prompt and kind of make something that might go with it a little bit better. So it's kind of a counter. And that's one thing I just found this morning when I was doing the mice stuff, right? And it's just, you make little mental notes on that stuff right along the way, and you're like, okay, yeah, it's kind of weird, but I get it. So anyway, we'll take this prompt that I got from one of the drawings on there, and basically it's got the Vanta Black dark circuit board with glowing traces on a busy highway in a futuristic neon city, and dark glowing black light stones lamp, and then Vanta Black. Let's see what it does with that. First, just on this very basic setup.
You need that section in there between the arrows, the Laura Flux 1 Vanta Black.
But let's try it without it. We can take it out of here. I'll just keep it in the paste. Take it out of there, and we'll see what it does. Like that.
It's very Tron.
Yeah, it looks like the light cycles thing, kind of.
Well, the whole space, the world, a lot of like the building outlines, and
So let me
dark circuit boards. I'm not really getting much of a circuit board out of that, but it does talk a lot about. It says a circuit board, but then it just goes off about streets and stuff. So I polished that one up. I polished that prompt up a little bit, but yeah, I get it. I mean,
if we added this back,
you can play with. It's so much like like a digital audio workstation, in the sense that there are so many different settings that are available that you could just tweak with any given setting and see what it does.
I put the Laura Flux back in, and I changed the sampler model to a different. I mean, it gave us a whole different picture. I mean, this isn't anything like the last one, really.
Well, yeah.
It's got the little buildings there, and anyway. But let's try to take this thing. Let's go to a different workflow, because I've got a workflow, and this is the one I just made. That's why it's an unsaved workflow. But tiny. All right.
The workflows are saved as JSON files too. That's great. Yeah. Mentioning Azure earlier. So Azure Resource Manager ARM templates, for those who don't know, are basically JSON templates or JSON files.
So this is a more complex workflow, and it's got the Stable Diffusion XL, the Stable Diffusion XL refiner.
What's the output for this?
The output for this?
What output? What does it do? Does it make a picture? Does it make a video? Does it make a song?
Yeah. It's just pictures. We're just doing pictures with the Stable Diffusion.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just making sure. Checking.
Yeah. Okay. We'll replace that with the one we had about the light cycles, or the circuit boards, or the city, or whatever it was, and we'll see what this does with that in that context. And in case y'all are wondering, this is the actual server running. It's running in a separate window here. You can see what it's doing. Just FYI, you got to start the server up, and so the interface is actually talking to the server on your own PC. So it never leaves your PC.
So I've got a request for you on the prompt. Can you remove the word circuit board?
Yeah.
Because that's just extraneous. It's not doing it. In so many words, it's not doing it. And I think it's just confusing the point. And I'm curious if by removing just circuit board, leave everything else.
Okay.
Yep.
Oops.
Let's generate that and let's see what it does, because I'm not seeing a circuit board there at all. Now, some features that we might expect to see in a circuit board would be, for example, circles for where the wires might poke through and be soldered. We might see the lines going in a straight direction, but very abruptly turning at a 40 or 30 degree angle or an 18-degree angle to go around another set of paths that's in equal oddity shapes. So I wasn't seeing a circuit board in that respect, and removing it, we're basically seeing the same thing. So I wanted to try that because I wanted to call something out that you mentioned, and we need to keep in mind the training model might not know what a circuit board is. And what's interesting is that it would technically be what's it, PCB, like printed circuit board. So maybe if you said PCB in the prompt without even clarifying what PCB meant, it might recognize capital PCB together as a printed circuit board. So can we try that in the prompt?
Yeah,
in that same spot, right after the word dark, put capital PC, and I want to see what it does. I want to see if it actually will do a printed circuit board as it's, yeah, these are good.
Okay. So PCB, where's right in there? I gotta zoom in more. There we go.
Right after the word dark.
Yeah.
PCB, you know. Let's give that a shot.
Let me switch this back.
The problem, one of the problems with this prompt though is that it's right after it says circuit board, it talks about a highway. So a highway is going to override the circuit board prompt. So again, I just think that the way this is prompted, and we copied this prompt from somewhere or something.
Right.
I just want to call out some of these nuances. This is why we're not seeing a printed circuit board, is because I'll say it's not as carefully constructed as it ought to be, and in this context, the circuit board becomes arbitrary, and you could just exclude it. It's not helping.
Right.
So, yeah, I am curious to see what this will get us. And you mentioned that the server's running in the background. So with those numbers that are popping up, is that each step is a separate line in the command line here?
It shows you exactly what it's done.
One of the things I want to call out there is the number loaded completely 9.5, etc. Exponent 20. So what it's saying is it's calculating these really massive numbers right now to find to find the similarities with the prompts and what should be expected next. It's really neat that it shows you in this much detail. It's processing. It's all numbers. It's just these numbers getting crunched.
Yeah, it helps a lot. It helps, especially when you're troubleshooting it. Like, I was sharing with you the first week, I was installing this via the Linux abstraction overlay that Windows has in the Ming W64. Right. And it gave me more control over each step of the process, but less control over the total output. And I realized that after the fact that I was spending so much time trying to configure each piece to work together properly, that the whole thing still wouldn't work together properly. Whereas when I just defaulted to using the Windows way, because it's running on Windows, and didn't worry about the Linux overlay, Windows was able to make everything work within the context right out of the box. It's just like, do this. I'm like, well, I wish I would have tried better, but I wouldn't understand it as well if I wouldn't have stepped through all that stuff. Now I know exactly what it's doing and what it's calling. So I learned more in the process, which I guess is part of why people like us do things, right? I mean, sometimes we realize that there's the benefit in the knowledge that we receive, even if that's not the way we're going to use to get to where we ultimately want to be.
Yeah, that's very true.
Let's see okay, so our picture, this kind of looks like what he had. I mean, it still doesn't look like a circuit board, but
so I would add some color to or I shouldn't say color, I would add a specific that says a top-down view, because that's one of the things. So, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because I actually need to drop here in a couple minutes. But if you go to the beginning of the prompt,
right? Yeah, this is actually it. I don't know what this Vanta black is. That just the color?
I don't know what that is.
I thought it was just the color because it's like Vanta black version 2.
Vanta black
that
style.
must be the model. or something.
So I would put top-down view.
So let's take that out of there, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll go top-down view.
And comma, but put a hyphen between top and down.
Okay.
Yep. Let's
And
give that.
to take the Flux Laura bit out again.
Let's think for a second here. So now here's where the problem that I was talking about a minute ago, we could clear it out. Get rid of the busy highway comment.
Oh, yeah.
But leave in a futuristic neon city.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see what it does with that.
All right.
I would get rid of the. I mean, ultimately, depending on what we're actually looking for here. In my head, I'd like circuit board. I just thought like a neon circuit board would look cool, so that's kind of what I had stuck in my head to start off with.
Right.
But this is the kind of thing. This is what we would call prompt engineering, right? It's just where you're trying to figure out how to interpret what you're seeing, how to fine tune it, either in just the prompt or in each of these steps along the way.
Right. Well, and that's like the
different model.
The mice pictures, right? And how I phrase it, and then the dinner and the diner, and just little things like that, just to see how it reacts to different phrasings and different language.
Can you zoom out and so we can see that picture there? Let's see what it did, or just scroll over, I guess.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's closer to what I was picturing. Yeah. I specifically was thinking in my head a top-down view, so I wanted to call that out as the first thing. Top-down view, we're doing that. It's a printed circuit board. We said PCB. We did not have to say printed circuit board. Right. Exactly. It knew what a PCB was. We had a question of whether or not it had that training. Well, if you say circuit board, not-ish, maybe. But also taking out that whole bit about making it in the city and going through freeways and stuff. But I think by leaving some of the city commentary in there, it gives it a sense of scale, like make this thing big. Or maybe not. I don't know. I'm spitballing here. But I like what we see.
Yeah, this still gives me night terrors when I look at it.
And I would say
I cut myself on those little pins like so many times when I was younger. Every time I grabbed one, it was like,
Yeah, hold them lightly. One thing that I would like to add on this prompt, just for funsies, would be add miniature buildings. Mini-buildings is what I would say.
Okay.
Top-down view, dark PCB, glowing trace, long exposure. Right after long exposure, let me think. What's the word? We want to say superimpose mini buildings. So yeah, mini-building. Yeah. Very cool. Let's see.
All right.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Something to do.
That'll be interesting. All right. Let's see. It's quick doing this, and 17 seconds.
And you won't come across a cap. You just keep doing this.
Oh wow!
Hey, cool.
You got it. Both.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now you're talking. They're almost like capacitors.
I love it. Yes.
They're almost like capacitors, or
right. Yeah.
That's fun.
Good call. That's awesome. I like that.
Yeah, that's great. That's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Good job. Let's see what it makes us this time. I think I have it set to randomize a seed. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh wow!
See, that's more of what I was thinking about, and that's how we start with. That's a pretty good idea, and we polish it and modify it to make it more of our own. And someone else might see this and have a completely different thought about it. They want to see a mini Godzilla tearing the place down, or they want to see, firefighters putting out a fire, or a ship sailing through the streets with pirates swinging from the.
This is a perfect example, right? I mean, we generated this in a matter of seconds on our local piece. I mean, we've done, I've done hundreds today already alone, and they're so small. I mean, they're like K, so they don't clutter up your hard drive, right? They're just like, I mean, I have the space, but it doesn't take it. And
there is something to be said about that, though, in the sense that what if you do want it to be very high resolution?
Right. Well, you can make it bigger.
And I would like to see that. I would like to see, making it bigger and having higher resolution are two very different things.
Well, right. You would have to upscale the higher resolution. But this isn't bad for what it is. I mean, if you look, this would be usable for something even, granted, it's not like Ultra HD or anything, but it's not like 1970s television either, right? I mean, it's like in between.
Right.
It's so funny when I watch the old TV shows that we used to watch. Sarah's season, my daughter, and she's just like, "Oh, I can't watch that. It's so terrible."
Well, even just non-HD, which I mean, HD wasn't really a thing until, I mean, commonly until about 20 years ago. So yeah, even that, like watching documentaries before. I mean, now 8K is just taken for granted on a phone. You don't have a documentary video filmed in at least 8K, and nobody's trying to watch that.
I don't think we even got color TV until I was like 5 or 6, at least. I mean, we had black and white TV, and you're like, Jim, you're dating yourself.
That's the whole point. Yeah. It's funny.
But yeah, I mean, we got our first microwave when I was in high school. You know, it's like,
Wow, it's great.
yeah,
That's great.
it's a trip. But
Oh, this is good stuff, man. I really like seeing this this progress. I like seeing the community out there too, for as much as it is a lot of the same kind of thing. There's some good stuff out there.
To clarify that, I mean, I wasn't talking about the models as much as the community. I mean, they just got it open to everybody. So that's
Right.
where you might see people aren't going to look at this at work. They have downloaded the models they need or whatever already. They just be dealing with the model. So, I mean, I just wanted to make that clear.
Good
'cause that's
stuff. Yeah,
a
no, I
big
gotcha.
deal.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, I got to get cracking here. Any last thoughts? Anything you wanted to touch on before we call it a day?
No,
Good
man,
stuff.
I feel really good about what we accomplished here today. I love the prompt you used to make this. This is very cool. So thank you for
It's just
that.
taking a step back and thinking about some very simple details to include early on, and not provide too much detail, because if you stick too many words in there, and this is from a guy who historically I could be way verbose, way long.
Yeah.
And so it's an exercise. It definitely can be an exercise. You might start trickling in color schemes or things like this. You might add qualifiers like ultra realistic or hyper cartoony, things along these lines to play with some of the, just set it off in a tangent. You don't need to control it all the way along the way. Just prompt it.
But
Just prompt
and that stuff
Don't
does
micromanage.
helps us ComfyUI, especially because it's running local, like the real life situation or whatever, or this is from a TV program or whatever, even though it might not be from a TV program, just something that could give it context, right? To
Right.
deal with it. Yeah.
Good call. Yep. Good stuff, Jim.
Yeah.
Well, good as always. Always fun
Yep.
talking to you.
All right. You as well. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of your weekend, my friend. Wow. This conversation with Eric really highlights how AI can amplify creativity while offering tools that are practical and adaptable to our workflow. As always, it's not just about the AI technology, but it's about how we use it to tell stories, to inspire others, and to push boundaries wherever possible. If you found this discussion insightful or have questions about the tools or anything else, please leave your comments in the comments section. And remember, this journey of creativity and innovation is just getting started. If you like today's video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you can stay informed when new videos come out. Stay curious, stay inspired, and keep blazing those trails. Later, Trailblazers.
PC Show Me AI, PC Show Me AI, PC Show Me AI.